dans ce nouvel épisode du Digital Download. Oops. Good afternoon, good morning, and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. And welcome to a new edition of the Digital Download, the longest-running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's #1 business talk, news, and strategy radio network. Today, we're diving into the art of optimizing B2B sales for sustainable growth. We have a special guest, Tove Ziliakos, to help us with the discussion. Tove is the country manager for Finland at Fenora. But before we bring Tove on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing this, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. Tim, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Thank you, Tim. Richard.
Good afternoon, everybody. Richard Jones from Curate, partner of DLA Ignite, veteran in the cybersecurity and compliance industry, and a relative newbie to social selling and all that goes with it.
Excellent. Adam.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner and also co-founder of DLA Ignite. And every time you introduce the show and you say the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, I get a little pang of pride at that, because it's remarkable, because we've been doing this for how long have we been doing this for, Tim?
Since 4th of May 2021.
Yeah, which is a long time. So
it is a long time. It is a long time. Thank you, Adam. And myself, Bertrand Godillot, I am the founder and managing partner of Odysseus & Co., a very proud DLA Ignite partner as well. So as I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Tove Ziliakos. Tove's proven ability to build scalable lead generation and sales processes demonstrates a deep understanding of what it takes to drive significant growth. Let's bring her on. Tove, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tove, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you where you are today.
Thank you. Yes, hi, everybody. I hope we have a big following from Finland here. I invited a lot of people to follow along, so maybe next time let's do it in Finnish. Tervetuloa kaikki linjoille. Well, I'm a B2B sales pro. I kind of stumbled into B2B sales. I was studying at university or business school in Helsinki, and was finalizing my studies and was invited for an interview to the 3M company. I was like, well, what? I don't know. Sales, that's not really what I was intended to do. I thought about doing, like, marketing was the thing I was studying. So, but I'll go and see what it's like, the interview. And then they offered me the job, and I was 24, and they said, you get a car, you get a phone. This was in 1998. You get a car, you get a phone, and a computer, and a salary. And I was like, yay. So that's it. And then I was basically hooked. Then I didn't ever look back. I've been going from sales position to sales position and advancing from this was a basic sales rep job where I was doing, cold calling was the thing because there was no alternatives. Again, 1998, before Google. So you had to call people and they had to take you in because that was the only way they could basically get any more information about what's happening in their field. 5 meetings a day, driving around in Finland, and like having 2-3 hotel nights every week. That was quite hard, but I mean, you were 25, so that's fine. Moving on to more interesting jobs and climbing the corporate ladder, if you want to say that. Moving on to more account management, global account management. Did a couple of years in London, and then I came back to Finland, where I landed a job with Xerox, where I worked them for 12 years, and that's basically, I think, that led my foundation of my understanding and how B2B sales actually really works. Or to actually turn it around, how does B2B purchasing work? Because that's what it's all about. And during those 12 years there, everything started shifting in the economy and in the business world also. So my own personal theory is that around 2008, two significant things happened. One was the big credit crunch, so financial problems. Everybody was basically putting their wallets or like closing their wallets and saying, nope, we can't buy anything. Nobody was taking any meetings because they were afraid that salespeople will just come in and talk them into buying stuff. And then also what happened was that the internet actually started to soar. You can see, if you look at numbers of web pages built, it actually coincides with this. So you see a real hockey stick effect there. Before this, internet pages were more for universities and for pages saying that, hey, we have a business, this is us, and that's it. So these two things happen, and something started happening a lot with sales, and you couldn't anymore get through. So you had to start changing stuff. But this was a long time before social came in. So, and then after Xerox, I mean, I was 5 years in the bank. That was interesting. Didn't really feed my creativity. So after that, I started my own business. Didn't fly off that well. I have a mortgage to pay. So I was in a startup for a few years, and now I'm the country manager for a very interesting SaaS business, helping other SaaS businesses with their financial processes. That's all I'm going to say.
So definitely a great journey.
It's very, very, very short, like 27 years of experience.
Okay. So let's start with the foundational questions based on your experience. How can businesses truly understand and deliver customer value?
That is a very, very good and interesting question. My first thought here is, unless you really understand what your customers will achieve thanks to your solutions, then you don't know what the value is. So you have to really understand where you fit into the customer's journey. They don't care about your stuff unless you are selling a strategic important stuff, like thing for their direct production. Then they really care about what you sell. But everything else it's irrelevant. But if you can understand how your solution helps them achieve their own targets and goals, then you understand the value, and you should talk only about that. So basically, if I'm a recruitment company, I shouldn't be selling that, yeah, we find the best candidates for you, or we do the best aptitude tests or whatever. But you should be thinking that because of us, you will have the best people working for you, and you will drive your business forward. It's changing the narrative into the customer's mind. And the way I'm a very visual person, so I draw stuff, and I visualize this like this: that if I'm looking at my customer, he's right in front of me, but I see him from the turn to the back, and he's looking at his customers. So I'm thinking like, okay, so how do I get into his head and see what his customers need? And then I try to find myself in that puzzle. So something like that. It goes beyond the like feature benefit, and then the value.
So I think you said something quite interesting as part of the intro, and I've noted this down because I think it's so important. You talked about the B2B, that you actually became an expert in the B2B purchasing process.
Yeah.
And what I would like to understand is, because we've got a lot of salespeople listening to this. So what are the key steps basically that you would take to optimize your sales process, probably knowing your customers' purchasing process? Am I correct?
First you have to understand a few things. First is the value. So we already established that one. So understand that and keep that in mind. Then the second part is to understand the actual buying process. What happens during different phases? And this is coming directly from my times in Xerox, and they didn't invent this. It's based in psychology. So we're talking about a decision-making cycle. And it has 4 phases, and it fits very well with the AIDA model. So attention, interest, desire, and so forth. But I turned it into, or at Xerox, they turned it into something else. So you start off where you are very much unaware of other ways of doing things. So you're doing your thing the same way, and you're happy or almost maybe not happy. I mean, you're unaware that there is any other way of doing said thing or whatever. So you have to. So the step is there to get that customer to become aware, and that you do by different things. But we are at the top of the funnel here. There's a lot of noise. But again, if you keep in mind the value and always feed that in to your conversation, you will get them to listen to you. Now, the next step is considering the options. So, not considering the options, but considering the before and after. So you have a current way of doing stuff or doing whatever, and then you have this new proposed state. You have still not actually said your own company or your business or whatever. You said like, okay, so there is a way to get yourself from A to B. You're currently biking, and there is a way when you use maybe a motor, but we're not talking still about the brand of car or whatever. And then you present, what is the gap? What is the difference between continuing as I am or doing it the other way? And here you should try to monetize it, or like put a number on it, like faster, more efficient, savings, something. And the third part is considering the options. Okay, so you've decided that it's smart to use a motor to get yourself from A to B. Now you can start talking about my car that I'm selling to you is this and this and that, and it has this and this and that. And I have sold my cars from many years, and these are my customers that are very happy, and blah, 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 blah. This is the first time you're talking about your own product. Before that, you're talking about the customer's own life and own reality. And then the last part is the closing. And this should actually be extremely easy at the end of the day, because if you follow all of this, there is little less left for the customer to go like, no. Because if you have done all of this, 90% of the time you will be spending in that first part, the awareness part. So that's, and if you understand through all of that, you understand the value, and you keep that value in mind instead of talking anything else than value, then you're gonna get back to the closing part, and the customer will say, I get it now. And should the customer at any point go like, I'm not so sure, then you back down. Okay, so Mr. Customer, we decided that this was this thing. Your situation is now that you need to get from A to B faster because whatever. Yeah, the difference between your bike and a motorized way of doing is this and that. Now, here are the references for my car that you could buy. So are there still any anxieties left? So basically, that's the purchasing, like decision-making process of a customer. So how do you put this all together is that when you are talking about these things with your customer or online or anywhere else, you keep in mind this value part and you stop talking about your product completely.
Yeah, so we've got an idiot in the comments, but the first thing they said, this is very basic advice, is absolutely right. But in my travels, and I speak to an awful lot of companies, what you're laying out is like, it's just common sense, but most companies don't do this.
Yeah.
Most companies, they know that this is what they should do, yet they get into some sort of customer interaction, and what they say is, and our product's got all of these different features and functions, and it's really better than everybody. And it begins as if the conversation and the interaction with the customer starts with a product demonstration. Because if I show you how good my product is, you'll be interested in my product. But if we go back to the very first thing you said about the customer doesn't care unless you're selling like this super important thing to their production, which they do care about. Everything else is like, well, I have a business, it's working. I've got 20 different options that I can pick here. And I think that certainly, I mean, how do you feel about this? Because my view is that every business that's selling something in the B2B space needs like a reality check. They need a reset, and they need somebody to point out to them that your product is actually, in my eyes, the same as everybody else's product. So why you? So how should sellers begin to plant that seed? How should they reset their own expectations about how that conversation unfolds?
Yes, that's a very good place to start. I mean, what I do basically is I really try and find out as much as possible about the customer. This takes time. I do a lot of research before I even start contacting people for the first time, because now we are at the top of the funnel and they don't know who you are and why I should listen to you and not the other ones. And if you just take that time to really understand their business, and then maybe you just use that sentence to hook them and say, okay, I see that you're designing a new product line in your business. Now, this product is set to, you're going to sell this to smaller businesses, and they like to be able to pay for this in a certain way. How have you thought about that when you are building your own billing infrastructure, for example? This is an example from my day-to-day life at the moment. So by just saying to him, hey, I understand your current business, and I know what you are facing every day, and I really want to help you succeed. Then they start listening to you. Instead of going in and say, hi, John, I have the best billing solution ever. We can do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And they go like, yeah, whatever. So can the other guys. But because I could find this one thing, it can be very small. But I mean, really understand that, hey, because of this real little thing, you need to have a solution like this. Now we can help you with that. Do you want to continue the conversation? Now he's aware of us. And then you start drilling down, because this is really, as I said, 80% is spent on that first top level. No, how do you get through the noise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that's really interesting is that almost every seller seems to be delusional about how important they think their product is. I remember when we spoke for the first time, you said there's this quadrant, and there's strategic and tactical, and then there's direct and indirect, and everybody thinks they're in the strategic direct part, and in fact they're all in the tactical indirect part, because unless you've got that one thing that you can only buy from me. And I think the example you cited then was uranium being sold to a nuclear power plant. It's like, okay, this is pretty pivotal for what I do. But if you're down in the opposite quadrant, you're selling CRM systems, and there are lots and lots and lots of different vendors. And I always think that sellers they overestimate how important the product is. They overestimate the sophistication of the person that they're selling to. Not that the person's stupid, but the person doesn't understand your CRM system, because why should they? They're in uranium manufacture or whatever. And it strikes me that sellers need to have a reset, don't they? They need to think, the customer doesn't care about my product. The customer doesn't see this as important, and I need to put myself in the customer's shoes more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, because we are many of us are selling well, let's say like this. You are being trained to sell your products on their features. How fantastic this is. I created this solution because blah, 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 blah. So it's a very, like, if you're in a small company, you might have a founder-led business. You have everybody should need this because I created such a fantastic product. But unless you do the flip and think about what are the actual values of this product to the customer, then you're not really hitting the mark here. I had a very good conversation with a friend of mine, Lauri, in Finland, who developed their product, and he's during this 10 years that he's been in business, he said that the product has pivoted completely, and only because the customers didn't use it to what it was intended. They started to use it a completely different way, and then Lauri realized, hey, this is actually quite good. So. And that again, keeping up your ears up and seeing what is really of value to the customers. And I feel that too many salespeople are so focused on their own massive greatness of product. When I was working at Xerox, we had this image that this PowerPoint show about the new product that we had, or the new solution, whatever. And we had that machine centered in the picture of the company. And these are all the functions of the business around it. And the bloody Xerox machine was in the middle. Now, I started when I started as a sales director in Xerox. I started to have a bit more time understanding my customers better. I went to these forums and where basically my customers met each other and had whole days of conferences and stuff. And I was just sitting there listening on their day-to-day things. And then I realized it just hit me. And I'm like, damn, they don't give a damn about us. They have these other things that they need to think about. So I started thinking, how do we fit into that? So how does Xerox become a helping thing of aiding the customer to where they want to go? And that's basically it. So how do you fit into this? And no, not everybody is going to be a strategic important partner. There is the axis is like the strategic and non-strategic, and then it's direct or indirect. And most of us are somewhere in the indirect and non-strategic. So we're talking everything from toilet paper to even CRM systems. I mean, because the thing is that there are so many of them. I mean, if you're buying plutonium or uranium for a nuclear plant, there are not that many that can provide that for you. Or my friend of mine, he was actually, I wrote it down because we had a conversation this morning, and he said, it's quite different when you're selling core banking platforms. The sales cycle are 8 to 10 years because you don't change core banking platforms like that. But you can change a CRM system nowadays fairly easy. So again, understanding and getting a reality check that these guys really don't care that much about your product, but they care if you can help them.
So we have two great comments. Sorry, Adam, two great comments. This one I enjoy very much, maybe because I'm French, but this one is about common sense and does play very well. It says, why is common sense just like deodorant? Answer, the people who need it most never use it. which I think is cracking. Thank you, Mark, for this one. And then we have a second one, which is about getting through the noise isn't about being the loudest. It's about being the clearest. And I think this goes pretty much around what you just said, Tove. So thanks for these comments. Maybe a question on digitalization. So there's a lot of stuff that we used to do, and we're taking a lot of time, as you said. Doing your homework as a salesperson. Things have changed quite significantly, or could change quite significantly if you adopt them. So what's from your perspective the impact of digitization for both simplifying and potentially enhancing your sales approach?
This is such a like a wormhole or something. First of all, for outreach, I think this AI and all these digital possibilities that I love, that's really done us a disservice. I mean, you can let's say you're selling marketing services. You can just go to any platform nowadays. You can you can get a list of marketing managers, and then you just bombard a tailored message. And the tailoring is basically your industry, the size, and your name, and whatever. And as I said, I have a one-person company, and I keep getting these emails saying, "Wow, I've seen your work. It's so great. We could offer you da da da." I'm like, dude, have you even been to my website? So this is, they're rude, and this is the noise that is somebody was getting through the noise. It's filling up everybody's emails, and this is a really big problem because the example I got here is a friend of mine had a marketing communications agency, and he's the co-founder of it. So his title is still marketing manager. And he got a message. "Hi, I would like to sell to you marketing communication services." And they go like, dude, this person really didn't do any homework. No, because they took a big database and just like threw in there some keywords and then just like shoot out and hopes that something sticks. So instead of making sure that taking the time to do your prospecting fine and honing in on your messaging and then calling people and trying really to be valuable to them, because you can sit there and think about these sequences for weeks and days, and you're still not getting more than you would be doing by actually tailoring your message that you're going to call somebody. And so, but do use these. I definitely use AI for almost all of my messaging, whatever I write, because I need to be very precise. I usually write it and then I ask AI to make it even like shorter, briefer, use different words, and like saying, don't use that word, I hate it, use another word, and so forth. So use this, but don't. Not everybody's going to be interested in your stuff. And you will actually be making, you'll be hurting your brand a lot. So that's like, but what I wanted to actually touch upon here also was how to make your sales more efficient. And that's what this lovely panel of people knows everything about. And that's like making the short sales cycles shorter, right? So let's say you have this, you are communicating with this way of that is people are interested in you, and you are sorry. I keep hearing background noises, so I'm getting it's not from here. It's not from here. Okay, let me wind back. You understand what is the value that you bring to your customers. You start to do a lot of this messaging out. You are on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram or Facebook, wherever your customers are the most, And you're basically just making sure that whenever your name comes up, you have something smart to say and something that is of value to them. You're not pitching your product. So my idea is here that once you pick up the phone and they answer, the idea is going to be, hey, we were just talking about you, or I'm glad you called. So my tagline is a bit like make them expect your call. So that's what you can do to make it shorter, because the sales cycle has actually begun a long time before you even pick up the phone.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that strikes me is that, and I think that your kind of analogy about how when you were at Xerox, you've kind of got this PowerPoint slide and you've got Xerox in the middle, and then everything that the company does around the outside. And I guess that part of the challenge in the B2B world for the seller is visualizing themselves in that relationship as the relationship actually stands, rather than being that strategic partner, but also leading with an understanding of what the customer is going through at any point. So I worked for a big American software company for a while, and we used to do lots of journey mapping, customer journey mapping. It was nothing to do with mapping the journey of the customer to buy. It was absolutely mapping our journey of how we sold. And that kind of disconnect and an inability to put yourself in the buyer's shoes makes you A, look like you're not listening, and B, look like you don't really care what the challenges are. So I guess the question is, what can a B2B seller do to start to reimagine how they could better be starting those conversations with customers?
I hate to say the obvious, but you have one mouth and 2 years. It's just it is just, you have to love the customer more than you love your own product. Basically, you have to understand that unless you know them really well, and unless you're really interested in them, you won't get that far. I mean, I'm a curious person by nature, and so I'm always very interested in understanding what they do and what are their challenges and what is the world that they try to get through. So that's why sometimes I think I do a bit too much research before I even call customers. But that's basically how I feel. But I mean, it's a lot of research, and then be curious, understanding. I mean, not only understanding the customer, but the industry they're in, and what are their competitors doing, and doing basically that mapping. I don't know if you picked up on that now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say, you began that by saying, well, I hate to say the obvious, but you've got one mouth and 2 ears, so use them in those proportions. But actually, what I see every company that I talk to, I see them acting as if they don't need to do the basics. We've moved beyond the basics. We don't need to worry about that. We don't need to do customer research because our product's really good. We don't need to listen to the customer because I already know what the answer is going to be. And I think that a lot of times we have to think back to how does selling actually work? And I think, again, in your introduction, you said it's not about selling, it's about buying. It's about letting them buy your product rather than you selling your product to them. And I think that when you think back to the old days, when you would have sold things literally by knocking on doors, I mean, before any of us were born, but you know what I mean. You knock on a door, you say to somebody, hi, I've got one of these, and they say, I don't like you, and they close the door, and you move to the next person. And then you keep doing that until they say, well, okay, I like you. Why don't you come in and show me what it is that you've got? And actually, if we get back to that way of thinking, clearly we won't knock on doors today, but that way of thinking is a very pure way of putting yourself in front of a customer, where we try to have some sort of dialogue. You're not interested, and I move on.
Mm.
And you said that the problem with email is that there's so much of it, and it's driven. Certainly, I see it being driven by people just being lazy. I don't need to do any research. I don't need to segment. I'm just going to send an email to everybody in the world because some of them will buy.
Yeah.
And so what are people doing wrong? Because there's marketing automation. There are AI tools. There's sales scheduling tools. There's all of this information at our fingertips. Companies are spending more and more money on sales tech, and yet fewer and fewer of their salespeople are reaching their targets. So
Yeah.
it's broken, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I think that most are so worried about the tech stack. It's like, yeah, I mean, you should have something to help you, but it shouldn't do the work for you. I mean, have tools to help you keep track of your calls, of your emails, and make sure that you know who to call and when did you talk to them last. But then all of this, I mean, I get amazed by like people like, yeah, we can do anything and all that. And then it's like, so when are you going to call the customer actually? Because we do, many of us do have sales-led strategies where we actually, it's a salesperson who is doing the selling at the end of the day. But I mean, today, that's only really the end of the sales process. That's the salesperson is getting invited in. I believe for a few years ago, Gartner said like it's 5% of all the buying processes start from a call or are initiated by the salesperson. 95% is initiated somewhere else in this myriad of information. And so basically, I would say, this coming from me, I love sales and I love all the salespeople, but we are not the key anymore. We are there to make sure that maybe we land it at the end of the day to do the closing, but everything else has to happen from somewhere else. The customer is doing all the work themselves. They're not having the conversations with the salespeople. How are they doing all of this? And that's basically marketing. And marketing is much more than ads and this stuff. So marketing, I'm a marketer. I have a master's in marketing, so I'm a theorist in this sense, that marketing is all the tactical and strategical activities you do to generate revenue. Now, sales in this piece is part of marketing. So everything else that you do to generate this revenue is actually should be part of marketing. There is a old school but still valid P for promotion, and that's the paid ads. But basically, that's where you need to be making sure that when the customer is out there and maybe searching or maybe just surfing, he gets your messaging. And that you can do as a salesperson through LinkedIn, being relevant there, or your company can help you with this. Your marketing communications can help you be relevant. But the problem here is going back to that value thing. When the marketing department puts out stuff like blog links or postings or anything like that, it's so bloody product focused. We lose track of the value again.
But hasn't that now created a situation where people just ignore all of that stuff? So the challenge for me as a buyer. So I, like everybody else, like to look at car adverts and adverts for rucksacks and phones on Instagram. But in the B2B world, I don't consume any marketing material. And the reason I don't is that there's so much stuff out there, and maybe it's partly because it's so product focused, but there's so much stuff out there, and I'm drowning under a weight of things that are vying for my time. So the route to get, when I think about how we sell as an organization, our route to get to our customers is for us to form a personal relationship with the customer. And that's why all of the organizations that we work with, we teach them how to be authentic, a much overused word, but how to be themselves. You know, I have a lot of sales conversations with people that play the guitar because that's an interest of mine. And it's a good starting point for a conversation because there is no hidden sales message in this. You know, it's two people talking about guitars, or Tim travels a lot. He talks to people about travel and food and all of this stuff that we all have interests in. And it's only when you've developed that kind of conversation that people say, so what do you do when you're at work? And then you've got the opportunity to explain stuff. But marketing-led sales, marketing-led communications, I think are as good as dead, really, these days.
Well, that depends, because I mean, if you are very strict in how you define it, and this is a definition question for me, because I'm not talking about basically if I post on LinkedIn and I am not selling anything there. I'm posting basically, hey, I had an interesting conversation with a customer and he was talking about a trip to France. This is content. It generates interest. It has nothing to do with my product. This is marketing. I'm placing myself on a map. So this is why I'm saying that social selling as a term is actually, it is marketing that you do there, because you are making sure that people know who you are and what you stand for. And then when they get to know you, like in your guitar example, you actually, then maybe they go, so we are now be talking about guitars for 2 months. What do you actually do? I've seen some of your stuff. And then you can like, yeah, well, it's this and that. And it's like when you walk around when you go to a dinner party and you sit down and you meet everybody for the first time. You don't say, hi, my name is Adam and I do social selling training. You say, no, hi, my name is Adam and I love guitars and I live in the East Anglia and so forth. So the same thing has to happen in the social context also, and that's what I'm saying, that it's a definition question. that because we are so inclined to say that marketing equals what a company's handle puts out or a blog post by the company. But let's say that you are doing a blog post on somebody else's page. You've been invited to somebody else as an expert speaker and all that. Now that's marketing.
Yeah, it is. But I think that what we see in our travels largely is that is not part of the overarching marketing strategy.
I know.
What is brand police, advertising, creation of brochures, creation of events, creation of email campaigns.
Yes.
All of which create noise in the marketplace. And marketing departments will often tell you that noise creates background hum and awareness of the product, which I don't believe it does anymore. What you're talking about should be supported by marketing departments. They should be saying, Tove, I want you to write something about this because this is topical for some of our clients at the moment, and share this with you. But in my experience, marketing teams don't do that because marketing teams are KPI'd on metrics that often don't mean anything anymore. So impressions or whatever. And success, as you know, from social comes from closing all of those loops. You know, if somebody drops a like on something, you know who they are, so you can then say to them, thank you for liking that, and try to develop a conversation off the back of that. Where if somebody sees something, you don't know who they are, so you can't send them a note to say thank you. And interestingly, the last comment that we've had in is from somebody saying, I spent 4 hours writing a short email to SVP of a Fortune 500, perfect email, relevant. He pushed it to a lower level $1 million deal. And that's lovely. That's absolutely, though, the problem is that is one instance rather than an inevitable outcome. It's like people that cold call that say, I cold called this target company. I called them at 6 o'clock one evening. Everybody had gone home except the chief executive. They answered the phone. They became my best company, which is very true. And it does happen, but it isn't a cause and effect. It's luck.
No.
Luck is never a good strategy.
No.
So most emails that I get, and everybody that I've ever spoken to gets put in the bin.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I have I invited her here to listen in. I don't know if she is here, but Oona is very known in Finland for pushing this social selling. She wrote a book about it and everything. It's there, and she in Finnish sales is myynti with an M. So you have like marketing myynti, so 2 M's. So she said her tagline is that sales and marketing are like M&M candies. They're like same flavor, like all the same bag, and they have different type of flavors, but it's the same thing. And that is exactly the thing that what you're saying, that when you're describing is exactly that type of thinking that has to go away. And it has to go away because we are when marketing is not measured on sales, then you don't get a good combination here. So when marketing is measured on how many leads they get, we get crap lead generators. When marketing is measured on clicks, we get absolutely rubbish stuff there. But if marketing is going to be held accountable for the sales, actually, and then I have these marketing that it can't be done, you can't do that. Well, why not? Because I think it can be very much done, and you don't have to sit there and track and attribute every single deal. Like, did this start from LinkedIn, or did it come from this blog post, or where did it come from? Who cares? It's about the marketing favorite term, brand awareness. So when I pick up the phone and I call you, do you know who I am? And do you know my business? And do you know what we can do for you? So this is all like all that noise that you keep making on social media is, do they want to listen to you? Are you helping them? And it goes back to that value, that do you really understand my business and can you help me with it? So it's not about me picking up a phone, calling any CEO that I've never spoken to, and I happen to have a deal, something that I can offer them that is relevant for most of our SaaS companies. So I have it fairly easy. But still, most of the people who pick up the phone and call them, so if they get somebody to actually answer the phone, most of them will say, nah, not relevant for me. Drop me an email, and then it's going to be gone. But if you keep grinding this and speaking about the value they can provide, then maybe the next time you pick up the phone and say, actually, I've been reading your stuff, and that's interesting. And then you have a conversation.
Well, Tim and I were at a big Salesforce event in London earlier this week, and we were walking across the floor, and somebody kind of pounced on us and said, "Hi guys, you don't know me, but I know you because I see you," which was lovely. It's lovely when that thing happens.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, probably 7 years ago now, Tim and I wrote a book called Smarketing, which is about moving, and it just so happens he has a copy, about moving sales and marketing departments into the same vertical, available in all languages now, about moving them into the same, because for exactly this reason, that, you know, if I'm compensated and measured on generating email addresses, I'll find lots of email addresses.
Yes.
Actually, what you want is you want me to be one link in the chain, whether I'm closing business or I'm generating awareness. It's really important that I'm one link in the chain, and we measure the importance of the chain rather than saying, okay, your bit is just this bit, because it's very easy, and we see again and again, don't we, outperformance of some departments and underperformance of the whole journey.
Exactly.
And does that come from the fact that prospecting, because what we're actually talking about is prospecting as part of marketing, right? And this is kind of full of the sales team desk, basically. So that I think maybe that's the reason where we are where most companies are where they are today. It's kind of splitting the work between sales and somebody else who happens to be marketing. But then having two different KPIs, two different set of KPIs, create misalignment for sure. But changing this is quite a challenge.
The thing, I mean,
so if you've got any tips, Tove, I'm all for it, and I'm sure we're all for it.
Yeah, Richard, you wanted to chime in here.
Say, I mean, you mentioned about Gartner saying that sort of 5% of the sales process is kind of in the hands of the salesperson, which kind of goes to prove that the salesperson has been sort of emasculated somewhat, and they have, they have very little influence over what's going on, and that's primarily being driven by marketeers who are still working in a world where marketing was done a certain way. So it's from my perspective, sales was always about diagnosing before you're prescribing, but we're busy prescribing before we do the diagnosing.
Yeah. I thought about one other analogy, and I was coming to our kitchen, especially in the summertime. I do normally all the cooking, and it's fine. My husband does a lot of other stuff. So, but I'm the person in the kitchen, except for the summer. Then he does the barbecue. But what happens before you throw the stuff on the grill? That's me.
Yeah.
So you have the kitchen, you have hours of chopping and stuff, doing things, and then he goes like, "Ta-da! I did the barbecue," and that's a bit like the salesperson going like, "Yay! I got the deal in," and the marketing is sitting there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's brilliant.
All right, great. Well, thanks for that, Tove. This has been really great. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more?
Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I do want to connect with as many people as possible. And if you're in the SaaS business in Finland or in Denmark and Norway, where we are present, we can help you. And if you want to learn more about my theories on sales, I do have my own business also, and I have written a little book about how to help become a better salesperson, available in Finnish, Swedish, and English.
And we'll definitely put a link on that book on our newsletter, because we now have a newsletter, and you should know that.
No, but I mean, I would love to talk more about this, but I know the time is running out. But the thing is, it's very difficult to put down everything like this in 45 minutes, and especially that talking with you smart guys and all your questions, and also following the questions and comments on the side. But this is just like, I love talking about how to make B2B sales better. And
and I'm pretty sure that came through to our audience. Absolutely. Okay, so we now have a newsletter, as I was saying, so don't miss an episode. Get the show insights, the show highlights, and the beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You may scan the QR code on screen, and hopefully it will come up. Or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of the panelists and the audience, I'd like to thank you so much, Tove, for joining us today. And see you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Tove.
Moikka, moi.